you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You're watching and listening to GB News. I'm Sam Francis. The headlines just after 11 o'clock. The King has shared his heartfelt thanks for the overwhelming public support he's received in his first statement since being diagnosed with cancer. In the message of thanks, he added, like all those who have been affected by cancer will know, such kind thoughts are the greatest comfort and encouragement. That statement follows the announcement from Buckingham Palace that King Charles, on the throne for just 17 months, is facing a form, they say, of cancer unrelated to his previous prostate treatment. Palace officials are calling for the King's privacy to be respected, especially during his treatment. But they say he wanted to make his diagnosis public because of his long-running support for cancer charities. In other news today, GB News has learned that 15 migrants were apprehended after attempting to cross the Channel in a stolen French fishing boat. The small vessel left the French coast between Calais and Dunkirk earlier this morning. The boat was then intercepted and handed over to UK Border Force officials. The migrants were then brought to Dover. That means that so far this year, almost 1,400 migrants have made the journey successfully across the English Channel in small boats. Police have today been continuing their search of the River Thames in central London, looking for the body of chemical attack suspect Abdul Azadi. Earlier, a police boat was seen moving between two bridges, with the Metropolitan Police saying that they had begun their search just after low tide at around 9 o'clock this morning. The 35-year-old suspect was last seen on CCTV on Chelsea Bridge. For those watching on TV, you can see the figure of Azadi there walking across the bridge on the left-hand side of your screen. That was just before 11:30 p.m. on the night of the attack in South London. Detectives now believe that Azadi has died and that his body may never be found. A woman has been charged with attempted murder today after the suspected poisoning of two children, one aged 9 and one aged 13. Emergency services responded to the scene in East Sussex on Thursday evening after receiving welfare concern calls. All three were later taken to hospital for treatment. We understand that a 38-year-old appeared in court and was remanded in custody. She'll also appear again in court on the 8th of March. Authorities have said that it was an isolated incident and they don't believe there is any further risk to the public. Pro-Palestinian protesters in Birmingham have been removed from a Barclays bank today on the High Street after staging a sit-in. 7 people can be seen lying down, for those watching on TV, inside that bank, with Palestinian flags and placards being raised saying "Stop the genocide." It's been reported that one man who was angered by the protests was seen banging on the glass doors of the bank's building. We understand, though, that no arrests were made. The ban on pavement parking should be extended across England, according to local councils. Wheelchair users, the elderly and parents with pushchairs are among those at risk by having to navigate around vehicles parked on the curb, according to local government association. They're calling on ministers to recommit to the principle that footpaths are for walking. London is the only area in England where pavement parking is currently banned. The Prime Minister has vowed to reward hard work with tax cuts in an interview with The Times. Rishi Sunak also hit back at critics who doubt he'll be able to turn the Conservatives' fortunes around. He says he's up for the fight. He's hoping the hint of tax cuts ahead of the next general election can help balance out his current deficit against Labour in the latest polls. Sunak's new vow to slash taxes comes after his own tax summary was revealed on Friday, showing his UK tax bill was more than £500,000 last year, as his total income rose to £2.2 million. And finally, Royal Navy aircraft carrier HMS Prince of Wales is setting sail this weekend. The £3 billion vessel will take over leading the largest NATO exercise since the Cold War. The announcement comes a week after its sister ship, HMS Queen Elizabeth, was forced to cancel its deployment because of an issue with its propeller shaft. That's just 18 months after the HMS of Wales itself suffered a similar malfunction. For the latest stories, sign up to GB News Alerts by scanning the QR code on your screen or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hello and welcome to Headliners, where we review the good stuff from tomorrow's newspapers with the skills of top comedians in this price bracket. Tonight we have, for the 5th night in a row, of Lewis Schaefer, which is one night more than his wife managed. And a man who was a snooker player before doing comedy, so he shouldn't miss his cue. Hey, Sean Mayo.
Hiya, how you doing?
A good weekend so far, gentlemen?
Hasn't happened yet. Oh, so far.
What? Haven't you also been on a show earlier today as well?
Am I allowed to say it? I was on like a primetime show, and
This is primetime, baby.
and there's been no complaints.
Well,
So
it's because I've been busy preparing for this and not sending my usual emails.
yeah.
All right, we'll crack on and see what's on the front pages, starting with the Mail on Sunday. Palace calls in lawyers over bogus AI books on King's cancer. The Sun goes with Star Billy in Love Split. The Sunday Express. Your messages have given me the greatest comfort, is their front page. The Sunday Telegraph. Army eases security checks in drive for diversity. The Observer. We've given up the fight, says Tories as poll defeat looms. And finally, the Daily Star. Abbey, I saw 3 UFOs on the A3. And those were your front pages. Let's crack off with the in-depth look at Sunday's papers with the Mail on Sunday, Lewis.
Good news. Oh, maybe not. Palace calls in lawyers over bogus AI books on the King's cancer. So the King has cancer. We don't know where the cancer is. He's not telling anybody what the cancer is. So people are writing books. And the way they write books today is they call in the AI and they make the stuff up. What's the difference of just... I guess most people like the old-fashioned way of just a guy lying.
Yeah, at least you had to put a bit of effort in the old days and write your own libelous book.
Yeah, and they don't like the idea that Jeff Bezos is making 65% from Amazon for every one of these crazy books. But the truth is, the King is upset because he calls this book intrusive and insensitive. And so he's calling in the lawyers, but is that illegal?
It's not illegal. And anyway, is there enough there to actually write a book? It's got to be a pamphlet at the very, very most, don't you think?
But that's the thing with AI.
Not enough there to write a book, is
You just tell it how many words to do. And
Leaflet. A leaflet.
Yeah.
So many of my newspaper columns get churned out that way, but let's pretend I write them. But no, that's the problem, isn't it? It might have just made stuff up. When you push AI too far, it makes stuff up. And to answer the question, is it illegal? It depends what's been said, if it's libelous.
Right, but I think the King, nothing personal. As the audience knows, I'm no big King fan. I'm an American. You can't hold it against me because we weren't raised with these people. But the truth is that we would learn so much more about cancer if he came out and said, I've got pancreatic cancer, or I've got bladder cancer. Yeah. And people could get helped. Probably they wouldn't get help because they go to the NHS and there'd be chemotherapy and there'd be surgery and radiation, which basically those 3 things don't work.
Well, I feel Ofcom's going to want me to say Lewis is not a trained doctor and isn't necessarily great at even Googling stuff. I think those are the things we have to now caveat your points with.
Yeah, well, I stand by them.
Of course you do. Sean, look, in the olden days, the Royals wouldn't have mentioned this at all.
I think they did a really good job of covering a lot of things up now, you know. I think the thing about cancer is, from what I've been told, is that there are certain genetics that affect it, and also there are certain things that, like they say that stress causes great... I mean, I actually bought a book once called How to Handle Stress, and it was 28 quid, and I thought they're not helping with that at all.
Very
fun. Very funny. Well, stress is really important. I don't believe in stress.
Of course you don't.
No, I don't believe in stress because I'm a man, and stress is a girly emotion, and I won't be part of it. I believe in the old-fashioned way that causes cancer, which is smoking, or carbohydrates, or fiber in the gut. The old.
I don't know. I think some people get stressed more. I was at the supermarket the other day, and this woman said to her child, she said, "We're going to miss the bus, and that's going to stress me up." She said, "You get stressed up when there's not enough sweets in the cupboard, Mum." I think a lot of stress is how you personally handle it, and to me, it's like you have to roll with the punches in this life. You know what I mean? Yeah. Some things aren't fair.
Didn't I just say that? That's what I just said. It's a girl. Stress is a girly thing.
OK, moving on.
Thank you, Sean.
We'll get some complaint letters, but with some really nice handwriting. Moving on to the Telegraph now. Sean, what have they
Telegraph. Story is, it's about the British Army wants to relax security checks for recruits from overseas to boost diversity and inclusion. A document leaked to the paper titled The British Army's Race Action Plan notes that the Army struggles to attract talent from ethnic minority backgrounds into the officer corps. Now, to me, as far as I'm concerned, you need the best people. The best people is horses for courses. Get the best people in it. I don't want I don't want SS 4-man patrols having someone with one leg and someone who's black and whatever sexuality you are. You need the best people, and you need plenty of them. And also, when you reduce the security checks, what are we going to have? More Russians, more Chinese, more Iranians in the army?
Yeah, good.
That's
It's a British
diversity.
Army.
You've just listed diversity there.
Yeah.
There's not enough Russians at the moment.
Well, he's totally right. I don't want, you're not supposed to agree with the things that I say, Sean.
I will work on that.
You work on it. Are they so desperate for people that they're hiring our enemies? Like in World War II, we don't have enough soldiers. Let's call it the Nazis, see if we can borrow some of theirs. It's absolutely insane. It is madness. We need a military made up of proper people from around here. Not even me. I wouldn't even trust me.
You'd be great. You'd be great in the military as a target. You know what I mean? I think you'd be really good at that.
No, I've lost. Is that saying that I'm fat?
No, I'm not. I didn't say that.
He just
Are
said
you sure you're not a girl? Because you keep thinking I think you're fat.
Yeah, because I've been working on it so much. And I think it's also we're on TV, and I think TV adds 10 pounds. It makes me a bit fatter.
There's 2 or 3 cameras in here. That's a lot more than you think.
I love how you just brought your elbows together to give cleavage as well.
Yeah.
This will help. I won't feel fat now.
Makes me feel pretty. I push my chest
For a
together.
long time in the army, the women were not allowed to fight on the front line. Did you know that?
No, I
don't know if they've eased that one up now. And one of the reasons was for morale reasons, you know?
Yeah.
Because you want the soldier next to you to fight and not go, look at her, that's the same outfit she was wearing in the Gulf crisis.
Right.
I am a comedian, these jokes will come out.
I know, but let me be the idiot with the. Let me be the.
There's plenty to go around.
I'm the misogynist of this.
Right, into the Observer. What are they going with, Lewis?
Good news. Good news. This is. We've given up the fight, says Tories, as pool defeat looms. This is the opposite. This is in the Guardian, in the Observer, the Guardian, same thing. And this is the opposite of the Express, which the Express always goes, the Tories are going to win. There's still a chance. Everything's great. This is the Tories. This is the left-wing Observer who is saying the Tories don't have a chance in hell. And this is for the first time I've ever read a story in the Observer that's actually possibly true, because the Tories don't have a chance. There's 2 big elections coming up in Kingswood and Wellingborough. I think it's on Thursday they're having these elections. And if they lose, it's going to be bad for the Tories.
Well, I think their prospects are about as good as Prince Andrew. Zero prospects, right? I think the only good thing you can say about the Conservative government at the moment is they made things really expensive for people, so people can't eat, they're walking to work. So finally we've got a government that's curing the obesity crisis.
Yes. You
I don't know why I looked at you when I said that.
Why are you looking at me like that? I am not. I weigh 78.6 kilograms measured.
Well, good for you.
Today.
Good for you.
I am 5'10". You can check my beat.
5'10"?
Well, maybe 9. 5'9".
OK, there's a big rounding error in that. Look at that. You go imperial on that one as well.
You know what it is? I mean, now you're calling me short. He's saying I'm fat and you're short. But this is what the truth is. The truth is politics in this country, I've noticed, are becoming very extreme over time. They're getting like there's huge
Undulations.
But the undulations sound gentle. It's like the Tories won massively, and now Labour's going to win massively, and before that, Labour won massively. So it's, when your time is your time, it's your time.
I think it's a pendulum swing, and that's how things go, isn't it? Generally in life,
Yeah. That's a song, the pendulum.
Undulations don't have to be small. I've seen some big undulations in my time. You should get out more and...
It's not the size of the undulation, it's what you do with it.
Yeah. Finally, we finish this section with the Daily Star, Sean. What great news are they bringing us?
Abby Clancy was horrified and she thinks she's being stalked by three UFOs over a car on an encounter on the A3. I'm always a little bit sceptical about people who believe that they're being stalked by aliens.
Yeah.
My biggest thing about aliens is I think a really pragmatic view would be to say you'd be very stupid to think that they don't exist. I just think it's a very, very bad time on the Earth, especially in the Western world, for aliens to land, especially if they land and say, take us to your leader.
Yeah.
It's going to be embarrassing.
You don't trust the leader. On the other hand, can I make a point, is that you'd have to be a crazy alien to land in Britain. I mean, with the parking regulations the way they are, the ULEZ, maybe they have a, you know...
They wouldn't come up the A3 as well, because you've got the Hindhead Tunnel. Surely they'd go up the A2, maybe you'd slip down the A1 or something, but the A3, clearly that's why she's wrong.
What, that tunnel goes under to Brighton, is that the tunnel?
It goes down to through Petersfield, that kind of neck of the woods, is
Is it the south?
Yeah, down to the south coast. There's no way the aliens would approach from that angle.
No.
Yeah, we'll clear that one up nicely.
Yeah.
That's it for part one, but coming up, Ireland is upset at immigration. Have they been watching this show for a few nights? And how's Brexit going? Find out next.
I'm not...
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
Elon Musk has announced that the first patients to receive a groundbreaking brain implant from Neuralink is recovering well.
This is all a bit odd. The product, called telepathy, uses a robot to surgically place a computer chip in a region of the brain that controls movement.
Yes, Elon Musk says that the first goal is to enable people to control a phone or a computer just by thinking. He says that initial tests show promising signs of brain activity, meaning that patients with paralysis could one day overcome their conditions.
Not sure about this one. Joining us to discuss this breakthrough is applied futurist Tom Cheesewright. Tom, this sounds, well, slightly terrifying.
I certainly think a lot of people will be thinking this is something out of a sci-fi horror rather than reality. But this is a technology that's been a long time coming. We've been developing direct brain-computer interfaces for a long time, mostly for the sort of therapeutic reasons that are the initial goal, at least, of Elon Musk's Neuralink, to allow people who are perhaps quadriplegic to have direct control via their brains of initially a smartphone and maybe ultimately artificial limbs or a wheelchair.
It does seem fascinating how quickly this technology is moving on. I saw demonstrations perhaps a year or two ago of people playing a very simple Pong game just by thinking, moving sort of one line on a screen up and down. This seems like potentially there has been a breakthrough that means far more complex things can be controlled just by thinking.
Well, there's lots of different aspects to this technology. The initial attempts to interface with the brain used actually quite thick prongs almost that went into the brain, and they were quite solid, and so if the brain moved, they could potentially cause damage.
I'm Christopher Hope.
And I'm Gloria Di Piero, bringing you
PMQ's Live here on GB News. Every Wednesday, we'll bring you live coverage of Prime Minister's questions when Rishi Sunak and Sir Keir Starmer go head-to-head in the House of Commons.
We'll be asking our viewers and listeners to submit the questions that they would like to put to the Prime Minister, and we'll put that to our panel of top politicians in our Westminster studio.
That's PMQ's Live here on GB News, Britain's election channel.
Welcome back to Headliners. Now, next Monday, February the 12th at 8 p.m, GB News will be hosting a People's Forum with the Prime Minister in the northeast of England. This will be a live one-hour Q&A where you can put your questions directly to him. So why don't we hear from the Prime Minister about how you can get involved?
Hi, Rishi Sunak here. Join me for a special GB News People's Forum Live on Monday the 12th of February. I want to hear about the issues that matter to you. For your chance to be part of the audience and to put your questions to me, scan the QR code on screen or go to gbnews.com. See you there.
He read all of his bits, right, so I can't judge. To the Sunday Telegraph, Lewis, and problems with immigration. That's the news story and not my judgment about you being here.
Oh, well, I think it is. It's been a problem for me too. So I haven't gone down well here. I don't travel anyway. So here's the news in the Telegraph. Tougher immigration laws favoured by majority of Irish voters. Latest poll shows. This is a poll that was done in the Irish Times and Ipso, and it says basically that Irish people, 6 out of 10, want a more closed border policy than what they have, and they think there's too much immigrants. Though 48% thought that immigration on the whole was generally good, and they're wondering, why do the Irish not like immigrants? And my theory is because nobody likes immigrants. People didn't like the Irish immigrants when they came to America. There was problems, and then eventually got used to it. And people don't. And the Irish, who are basically, it's a country, right?
Okay, we're with you so far. Don't go too fast, but we can follow.
It's a country. I know we think of the Irish people being leprechauns and poets and singers in bands and whatever they are. They're human beings, and they don't like their schools inundated. They don't want their country changed. This is just the way people in countries.
Isn't it a case of there's a worry, I think, at grassroots level. Some places when I'm gigging, you go to towns, port towns maybe, and they think that the fabric of their society is being changed. Now, I think that change is part of life, and I'm not particularly good at it, but I think there's a level of what's acceptable and what's not. And I think if you've got whole enclaves changing and a way of life changing, it's very hard for people to take that on board very quickly. I mean, that's the first I've heard of the Irish complaining about it, maybe in the same way that we do. And I don't think it's out of order to complain and say, listen, you've got to make it good for everyone who's here first before you start opening the door to everyone to come in.
Do you think the poll's interesting as well? Because you have the statistics of people saying immigration is in general good. It's the but that's interesting. It has to be about the speed, doesn't it? If people are saying immigration's good, but there's a problem with what's happening.
There's the cost of it. There's the cost of it, right? I think that when everyone's really struggling, I think they're more conscious of it than if we were doing really well. I think when you've got money in your pocket and you're not continually looking at the gas meter, you look at problems slightly differently. Perhaps. I do, anyway.
Yeah, but why, I think you're asking, why are people generally happy with immigrants? Is because eventually, well, even Louis Schaefer has been somewhat accepted by these people. Eventually they accept... Please, say that they have.
Sean Mio disagrees with that.
is that over time, people get used to having people there and they get to know the people, and most people are good. It's when there's too many of one kind that changes the fabric. Yeah. As opposed, it's like adding an extra potato in a stew.
You're really going back to these Irish stereotypes, and it's going to get you in trouble, but we'll crack on. I just love the fact it's you and Elmo from Sesame Street who refer to themselves in the third person all the time. The Mail on Sunday, Sean.
Okay,
Hang on, let me do the intro. Okay. Tractors held a go-slow on the roads of Kent. As opposed to what? Tractors, well known for doing 60 on a dual carriageway. Crack on.
OK, so it was gridlock at the Pool of Dover. There was a tractor protest there. Farmer Geoffrey Gibson from Wingham, I hope I said that correctly, in Kent, revealed the protest was against cheap imports as well as the government's sustainable farming incentive. I watched news footage of the French farmers going to Paris, and I've always got a lot of time for the French when it comes to protesting, I just think they literally make it happen, and they put extreme squeezing pressure on a government immediately by circling Paris. And I think that farmers are they need to be supported. I don't know anything about it, but I'm sure it must be much harder and much more expensive and much more difficult to make a profit than ever before now. Certainly after Brexit. I don't know why it is like that, but I think the Ukrainian war, they say, has trebled the price of grain if you're an agricultural farmer, or it's really hard on them, really hard. I think I've got a lot of time for them.
Yeah. Lewis, your take on this? I mean, the opinion in the piece kind of mentions Brexit, but actually the complaint is more about the post-Brexit deals.
Yes, and that's what's a bit weird. They're saying it's harder for the farmers to export stuff, but it's easier for other countries to import stuff, which affects the farmers' prices. So, and these are the people who voted for Brexit. So basically, they're saying that Britain made a bad deal during Brexit. But the thing that Sean mentions is, I think, is that English people envy the French and the French excitement and enthusiasm for rioting and demonstrations, and there's a love that the English have for the French.
Yeah, because when the French riot, the police there have water cannons with still and sparkling water. That's how good they are.
Very good. Very good.
The Sunday Telegraph, Lewis, is the Bank of England obsessed with Brexit? You should only do that if you were trying to win an election.
Yes, it is. It is obsessed. This is according to the Telegraph. Bank of England accused of Project Fear narrative, quote unquote, with Brexit obsession, and this has to do with Mark Carney, who's was the Canadian Bank of England.
He's still Canadian.
Is he still Canadian? But is he no longer the head? But basically, what they're saying is the Bank of England, when they have these meetings called these decision maker panel, and there was a guy on it, and he said every time they had a meeting, they were saying, what about Brexit? Is Brexit affecting you? Trying to whip people up into a panic about Brexit. And they didn't mention the Ukraine, how it was affecting the problems here, or COVID, or the Middle East. It's all Brexit. They're all Brexit all the time, these people, the same way we're all trans all the time.
Yeah, so can I do the annoying thing of bringing in the truth to the story? So it wasn't about meetings, it was a questionnaire that was sent to inform these decision-making meetings. And it's not that they've never asked about Ukraine or COVID. They did, but they've gone back to only asking about Brexit, and the questionnaire was set up to investigate the effects of Brexit.
How is that different from what I said? How is that different?
You said it was meetings and they never asked about COVID and they never asked about Ukraine.
Because this guy, I said this guy was at these meetings. I didn't, maybe I should have said...
Given the questionnaire, yeah.
He was given a questionnaire, and then one question, but then he's given other questionnaires where they didn't mention it. So I thought...
But the questionnaire was set up to investigate the impacts of Brexit, and it asks about Brexit. I don't know, when you read that bit in the story, do you not feel less shocked, Sean?
I don't know. He's very amusing, isn't he?
He's great.
I just think, all I thought was, when he said Mark Carney, was, I think that's got to be the best job in the world, being governor of the Bank of England. It's got to be a licence to print money.
Ah, there you go.
That's a joke.
Very funny. Can I just tell you something? Every time you tell a joke and I don't tell a joke, it's making me look bad.
The Express... That's not what's making you look bad. The Express, Sean, the Home Office celebrated World Hijab Day, which I'm sure is part of a cover-up.
That's good. I like that. This is a weird story. The email claimed that the hijab also applied to Muslim men, that it affected their behaviour and encouraged them to behave modestly. I don't know about that. I mean, I think there's an over-sensitive area in this country where you're making allowance for things you don't have to do. I think if you want to wear that, if that's your religion, you can. I just think just get on with it. You don't have to tell us all about this.
Yeah, but what is the Home Office?
I mean, some masks do suit some people, don't they?
Yeah,
ugly people.
The ugly people, right? But at the same time, this is why this is a non-story, because the Home Office also promotes World Yarmulke Day, World Balaklava Day, World Gimp Mask Day, the benefits of Gimp masks. I made this up. I made this.
Is that your speed dating mask?
I know if I were this dude, Sean Mayo, it would come out funnier. And it's not my fault. I'm doing the best that I can. And it just shows how and this is the Home Office under the Tories. It just shows how
desperate they are for votes they're not going to get.
They're just being Team World has taken over everything.
It's too soft. This country's just too soft.
Surely Team World should be involved in World Something Day. If ever there's one thing you can let Team World do, it's organising stuff across the world.
It's Team World Day.
Yeah. Team World Day, there you go. That's it for part 2, but still to come, a question over energy drinks for kids. Who wants kids to have more energy? And we'll tell you how you can get a council house. Details up next.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens. With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to give you accurate reporting every day. When the news breaks, we'll be there with bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Lee Anderson's Real World. Fridays from 7 p.m.
Dr. Jane Jones, who's the clinical lead for Care After Combat.
Yeah.
Jane, thanks for coming. And just tell me a little bit about your organisation. What do you do?
OK, well, thank you for having me here so we can talk about Care After Combat. So we are an organisation, a charity, who work into the prison system, working with military veterans who've somehow got involved with the justice system and...
So there's quite a high population of ex-servicemen and women in our prisons. Why is that, do you think?
So 2014, the government did a review of who was resident in UK prisons, and what they found were that military veterans are the highest occupational group, and this obviously raises some concerns. Yeah. So the government wanted to do something about that, and so they supported Care After Combat initially, just as a scoping exercise, really, to see if there was any way we could help these men and women actually, understand the problems that led to offending behaviour and go on to lead successful lives.
So what sort of offending behaviour are we talking typically for people that's in prison that's actually served in our armed forces?
Primarily, it's violence.
Yeah.
So that is the highest offence that we work with.
Okay.
But of course, the military, as with everybody else, it's the full range of offending behaviour.
OK, so we're in a pub, Jane, Dr. Jane, and I guess for some people, the odd tip of alcohol is good, a bit of fun of a weekend, relax, let your hair down. But for some people, alcohol is not always their best friend, and I guess that plays a part in some of your veterans that end up inside.
Absolutely. So, speaking from my own experience, a good 2/3 of the people I work with have some kind of mental health problem or mental health difficulty, struggling to either adapt into civilian life or with some of the traumas they've experienced during service. People might self-medicate with alcohol to manage some of those thoughts and feelings.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan. Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks. The admission's free.
Have a great Saturday night with me, Leo Curse, on the Saturday Night Showdown. It's a crazy world out there, so come and make fun of it with me, my panel of comedians, and a couple of people who actually know what they're talking about. This Saturday Night Showdown is your front row ticket to the clown show every Saturday, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners. To the eye, Sean, and energy drinks are as addictive as cocaine, which explains why I've been in Soho turning tricks for a Red Bull.
Well, yeah, this is what apparently the story says. This story comes around every once in a while that high-energy sugar drinks are addictive as cocaine. I don't see county line gangs delivering that stuff early in the morning, but I also don't think it's quite the same thing. I mean, the food companies are loading all their processed food with sugar. You're weaned on it very, very early. The sweets are in the supermarket very low for the kids to grab and press them, mummy and daddy to buy them for them. You're sort of weaned on sugar at a very early age, and I think there's no getting away from it. I think making a ban on it's just unworkable. Like the same way that if you make drugs illegal, it hasn't made any difference whatsoever. They've just found ways around it. That's a good thing about the crime syndicates is they find a hole in everything and they get through it.
Although I suppose you could say there's definitely less cocaine in the supermarket. Down at that kid level.
Yeah, but also, here's another thing, right? If you get addicted to sugar and you go to rehab, those stories are never as good as the stories of people doing drugs.
But cross over to our sugar correspondent, who's going to say that sugar's worse than cocaine because of the calories.
No, I think sugar is worse than cocaine because it's killing more people than cocaine with diabetes and all of the quote-unquote symptoms of diabetes, which include Alzheimer's, cancer, all the disease, gout. These are all symptoms. Is that what this is? This is just one nanny state, police state, team world trying to control everything. And what they're doing is, I'm going to tell you why this thing is so pernicious. And I don't think I've ever used that word before.
Twice tonight, I think.
How about you? Pernicious. I don't think I have. And it's basically It's basically saying there's sugar, which people think of white sugar, right? But
diversity in sugar.
But carbs, which include lots of sugars, fruit sugars, glucose, all the different starches, are just as bad, and they break down into sugar. A bowl of pasta is just as bad as a can of Coke. A glass of orange juice is just as bad.
That's for sure. Sugar is sugar, and calories are calories. In the end, it's what goes in and what goes out, and you have to make that deficit. Otherwise,
that's another argument: what goes in, what goes out. But the truth is, sugar. You were right about this. Sugar. This is why we should have gone over this before the show. Sugar is sugar, Sean.
I know.
I agree with them. And so...
Hang on, does it say sugar is sugar? Hang on, you're agreeing with them saying sugar is sugar?
Yes.
Which I don't think is a sentence. That's like Brexit means Brexit. No one's tautologied that one from
What I'm saying is that white sugar is the exact same thing as healthy, as the sugars, the carbohydrates in healthy whole grains.
The story was about energy drinks.
Yeah, because what they're trying to do is they're trying to demonize one thing at a time, and so they're...
Do you think they should demonize sugar?
No. Yes, they should.
So you agree?
I agree, but they should demonize all plants, period, but not make it illegal. Plants are the source of all ill health in this country. We have a king who is dying of plant-induced cancer.
Well, we don't know that, and that feels like you've really had to take it a step too far. And cocaine's from a plant as well, so what have we learned? The Observer, Lewis, and many schools are now going bankrupt. So now who's not good at maths?
Yeah, well, it's like, because why? Teachers facing redundancy as record number of English schools fall into deficit. And what's happened is that they've run out of money, these schools, all across the country. I don't know how many, they didn't say how many, but they're all having trouble, thousands of schools. Because they haven't balanced their books, which is, you're totally right. If they're incompetent, the teachers. I mean, that's why they go into teaching, those who can't teach.
Yeah.
Isn't that the
Those
saying?
who can't teach, that's the saying, yeah.
And
isn't part of this problem that a lot of councils are going to go bankrupt, and don't they get some of the money in their grants for schools from the councils because people haven't been able to pay the council tax or haven't paid the council tax? I've heard that that's a knock-on effect to the schools. Also, you know, as you said, or you're pointing out, if you're teaching maths at school, the last people you think should get the sums wrong about their accounts would be the teachers. But I'm sure it's harder than that.
Yeah, in their defence, it would be, I can't remember how many years ago, but it's relatively recently that the schools are put in charge of their own budgets in that way. And it's interesting you bring up the councils. Councils also are not legally allowed to have a debt at the end of doing the accountancy period, so that's why they have to declare bankruptcy. If that same rule were in place to our government, they'd be bankrupt every single year.
We maxed out that credit card a long time ago.
Exactly, yeah. Fascinating. You know what? I think I've done that one. We've never done one so quickly. The Eye, Sean, and you can rent a council house on Airbnb, which is good news for that Greek woman from that Pulp song.
Well, OK, so this story is... and we discussed this briefly in your little office, didn't we? Council homes are being illegally rented on apps like Airbnb, and they're costing the taxpayers, they reckon, an extra $6.2 billion. I think there's part of this is opportunism, and part of it is everyone's struggling. Everyone's trying to look at a way to make a few quid on the side. And if you can't deliver fizzy drinks with your, late at night or whatever it is you're doing, I think everyone's looking for a way out. And, of course, as we touched on before, putting this country into lockdown, and I'm not a political animal, it's fairly obvious, isn't it, like an assassin on the loose, but I'm telling you, putting everyone inside for a year has maxed it out to such a point that government must be scrambling around looking to fill the coffers with money, and that's one of the ways they can look at this sort of thing.
Yeah. Lewis, your take on this?
My take on it is this once upon a time, council houses were just council-built houses, built at a discount because they had taken out the profit motives from the greedy landlords, and they were for regular people to live and to do in these houses as they wish. But somewhere along the line, they've decided that council housing is social housing, and it's not for normal people. It's for people in need. So the council suddenly looks at people's homes and saying, oh, you're not using it efficiently, you don't have...
So just to push back on that, and do you think it should be allowed that someone who's given a council house should be able to rent it out on Airbnb for like $1,000 a week?
Yes.
They're making money out of a property that we as a state built.
Well, yes. Yes, because that's how it was. That was the deal that was done.
You currently do that, Lewis? Now I'm starting to think this is what you're up to.
No, it isn't, because I'm not. Can we change the subject?
Exactly what he would say.
No.
If that's what he was doing.
No, I think that people rented council homes with the belief that it was their home to use. It was a family home, whether there was 10 people living there or one person living there.
But more and more people are renting out the Fritzl.
So let them rent it out. Let them rent it out. And
this is renting out the whole place.
And should teach the council a lesson.
It's
they should
literally not a family home if you're saying they don't live there and they rent it out to people on Airbnb.
Who's to decide what a family is? I'm
a family in it.
I'm a one-person family.
A family home has a family.
But you don't know if they're going to move back. You don't know what they're doing the other days that it's not an Airbnb, whether they're living there.
One person is not a family. It's a lonely man.
But they've...
Are you calling me lonely? You call me
I'm
fat?
not. He gets out of the house to come and do this every so often. Bless him. The Sunday Telegraph, and people are having less sex since we've been on TV just before bed. Do the maths.
Why the world is having less sex? This is the Sunday Telegraph. This is one of those Sunday stories where they just got to put words in there.
AI wrote it.
Yes, basically that's what it is. They asked the French, and the French are having only 24% of French people who are supposed to be very randy haven't had sex in the past year. 24% of adults, and it used to be as recently as 15 years ago. It was like 9%. So it's gone from 9 to. People are not having sex, and I think a lot of it is because women are fat. And
yeah. Okay,
Wait, can I back that up? Can I back that up?
You're like one of these guys that says that people don't have sex when it's hot, and you go, that's why there's no kids in Africa.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Well, I think...
Now, can I apologise for that?
I thought you were going to make it better, Sean.
Well, I don't know.
Yeah, that was pretty bad.
I don't know.
My theory, I mean, you're right, it is shocking of all the countries that are having less sex, French, because they're known not only to be quite amorous, but they're also a bit kinky, because I asked one woman once if she wanted to sleep with me, she said we. So, wasn't doing that.
OK.
That's a joke. That was funny.
I don't know where... I always think these are slightly tongue-in-cheek questions, especially when they poll the people between 18 and 69 on the sex question. Yeah, that's right.
But the truth is, we're having huge demographic collapse, and there's a million reasons why we're having. I will add a little bit of education to this after that horrible joke that I made. Is the number one thing that's killing birth, and which is related to people having sex. People don't want to have sex if they don't want to have kids. Generally speak, a lot of times is people living in small apartments. Small flats. The smaller the flat, the less people are having kids, and the less people are having sex.
But you should be able to afford to have children, don't you? Don't you think you need to be responsible when you have kids?
That's a good point. Back in the day, you talk about farmers. Whenever someone had a kid, a child was good for the farm. It was a profit center. It was an employee. Yeah. But now, if you have a kid and you're living in a small little flat, it's a drain.
Well, how about this? Well, I met a guy the other day, and his ambition was to have 11 kids so he could have his own football team. And I thought, that's nuts, isn't it? Because if one of them gets injured, you have to wait 9 months for substitution.
Very good.
Thank you. I am a comedian.
Can I just tell you something? Sean at least makes jokes.
Yeah.
And you do too.
Well, we try to. We're going to whip through this one quickly. The Sunday Telegraph, Sean. The Globe has gone gender neutral. To she or not to she?
Yeah, well, the Globe Theatre is accused of appeasing gender activists after staff inclusivity guidance was leaked. Training documents told staff to replace the words such as gentleman with someone and avoid using the term guys. I think this is another sort of wokey non-story to me. It's like when people are going to be offended and being grouped into a certain, vocabulary. I send lots of emails and other things I do to men and women, and if it's to a department, right, and it's got men and women in it, I'll go, hi guys, I've got something here for you. I don't think anyone's ever come back and said, how dare you say that to me.
Would you start the email with, hey, gentlemen?
No, but I have done sometimes.
But if you to a whole department,
gentlemen, your table is ready at 7 o'clock. May the best man win. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but what if there's a woman? He's asking, what if there's a woman in it?
Guys feels like it could include anyone. Gentlemen, definitely.
Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, whatever you are.
Yeah. Well, I think you're wrong. I think you're wrong. is that every business has to have rules. We'll never run out of these stories because every business, every organization has to have training documents. You can't go around saying, what about you, B-word, whatever, if you see a bunch of girls there. You know what I mean? You gotta make sure that people are well behaved.
That B-word. Oh, heavens. For a minute there I was
I didn't even say the word, but you know what I'm saying? You have to have some control. There has to be some rule book. So
that people don't litigate and try and get an easy dollar off you.
But
Yeah.
if we stopped paying attention to these stories about gendered words, the show would be half an hour long. So stop it, Lewis. We've got bills to pay.
Well, we need to focus more on the trans thing. We're not talking about
There'll be
that
one in
enough.
the next section. But that's it for part 3. Coming up, Jeremy Clarkson sorts out this whole racism thing and find out which comedians can't be cancelled. Spoiler alert, it's probably not Lewis. See you soon.
Now then, Lee Anderson here. Join me on GB News on my show, The Real World, every Friday at 7 p.m.
I'm not eating bloody cat. Are you
Delicious.
mental?
Open your mouth. OK, here comes a train.
Reminds me of the scene in Singing in the Rain.
Adam, is that a good one?
Whoa! Join me at 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast. Every day from 6 a.m.
Marnie says being sexy in business is entirely possible and maybe even better.
Well, Marnie, this is something I say is true. I've had to live with this for quite a long time, and I think you can do both. Now, tell me this. Lovely to see you, first of all.
Thank you for having me.
In all your gorgeousness. And you're telling me that often is regarded as something derogatory or something to hold you back. Is that right?
It's just this really unfair thing, this really unfair narrative that women can't do both. Even men can do it, as you know, Eamon. You can do it. You can do it all. And I just think, you know, women are so multifaceted. They can be mothers, they can be sexy, they can be businesswomen, they can be silly, they can be all these different dimensions. And this press push that we have to limit ourselves to one category, it's just unfair.
But do you think that is where some people may be wrong-footed or go wrong to underestimate you?
Exactly. There is that saying, disarm with charm. So, you know, that there is that idea that people do look at someone who cares about how they look, who's perhaps a bit feminine, and underestimate them. But hopefully I've proved that wasn't the case in the boardroom.
And thank goodness for Karen Brady. She's definitely upped the glam stakes on the show. And if anybody can prove that you can be sexy and successful in business, I suppose it's her, really. But where do you think most of the criticism comes from? Because I have to say, hard to believe, but when I was younger, I certainly got a bit of this at my old employer, being told that I had to dress a certain way, not to be too sexy, which I found hugely
you were told this by women.
I was told this by a female boss who didn't like me wearing zips on the back of my dress. Not just me, but some of the other presenters there. And I took such offence. I felt like she thought that I was some sort of, I don't know what. Do you take offence when people are criticising you that, you know, in some way they think you're, I don't know?
There's just no right answer. And as we said, I think Karen Brady is doing an excellent job at leading the charge that you can be glamorous and get the job done.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
Wake up to the headlines with Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. We treat you to the day's biggest stories before anyone else, 7 days a week. You can catch up on everything you need to know before you've even had your kippers. Headliners every morning at 5 a.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners. To the Metro, Lewis, and some comedians are too rich to cancel, and the others end up here.
Yeah, I don't know if Ross Noble is this way, but he made a big piece in the Metro. It was another one of those boring Sundays we've run out of news. They interview Ross Noble, which is fine. It's fine to interview him. I've worked with him. He's really, really funny. He says if you make enough money, you can't get cancelled. That's just a snip of this really long interview. And there's nothing worse than reading about other comedians who were selling out the Palladium in an interview. It's not really news. It's not news.
You could sell out the Palladium, not the theatre. Yeah. I'm sure there's a pub somewhere called that.
Called the Palladium.
I don't know about this cancellation thing, cancelled thing. I think for sure, if you've got enough money, not only can you not get cancelled, but you can find the people who were going to cancel it and pay for an assassin to knock them off.
Right? Exactly. Well, that's
send a message to these idiots, right? Yeah. Cancellation is just like, I don't know. I think it's like someone railing against the rules like a child. I think a lot of this wokeism is just railing against the rules like a child, and in the end it'll even out and they'll grow up.
And that's what Elon Musk is doing. He's suing Disney, you know, on behalf of Karana, what's her name? And so, yeah, you hope it's going to be that way. But I think he was just asked about it because he's, like, totally not cancelable.
Why is he suing Disney?
Why is Elon Musk suing Disney? He's suing Disney because he hates Disney because they've withdrawn advertising, trying to kill Twitter. So he's standing up for somebody who also got canceled. But this story about Ross Noble, I think it's interesting if you like comedians and you like reading about successful comedians.
No one likes comedians. If there's one thing I've learnt doing this show...
Yeah.
Right, let's crack on to the next bit. The Sunday Express, Sean.
Okay,
Jeremy Clarkson says that the countryside isn't racist, so I'm sure that'll
Clarkson's farm star, Jeremy Clarkson, hits back at claims the British countryside is racist. Jeremy Clarkson has hit back at the notion the British countryside is racist and he insists residents don't care about race. I don't know. I think in their own way, I think when people have their lives interfered with and they're struggling, it's much easier for that to boil to the surface. I just think it's just absolutely not the right thing to just judge people because they're not the same race as you. I just think that's nuts. There's loads of other reasons to hate them.
Yeah, the colour of their skin.
If you're an idiot, you've got it covered.
That was a joke. That was a joke.
We need to put that banner up again. We say joke there.
That was a joke.
Yeah. But, I mean, the article itself, the original article, it's the headline that calls it racist. The actual report says that the countryside is something like overwhelmingly white.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be seen as an insult, really, should it? I mean, if that's because loads of white people live there, that's...
Well, that's historically how it was. Every once in a while, right, a lorry pulls over into a farm and the door opens and a bunch of guys you've never seen before run out and head towards the AT, right? In Kent, right?
Yeah.
But that's just desperation. Do you know what I mean? That's desperation. I think you do the same if you're in their situation.
But it's like people from my background, some working class, every one of my ancestors, they're all down the mines. We didn't get to go into the countryside. We certainly didn't get to own any of the countryside.
Yeah.
But because there's no racial difference there, it's not a racial issue.
I think what it is whatever white people enjoy, we're going to try to take away from them. And the second thing is these people who are saying that inner city people have no access to the countryside. Well, why? Because of high petrol prices. You're making it illegal to own cars. You're making 15-minute cities, and then they're wondering why no one's going to go into the country because they don't have access to the countryside. You read this story and you just hate people.
Yeah. Let's crack on to the next one. The Sunday Telegraph, Lewis. Did Scotland invent football, not England, which really means it's not coming home?
Yeah, Scotland taught England how to play football, BBC documentary claims. It's this show, bringing up football, and it's all about how great Scotland is. It's from BBC Scotland, so of course they're going to blow themselves up. BBC is horrific and should be defunded, but BBC Scotland is double wrong.
But the Scots have had some amazing inventions, haven't they? They invented the television, didn't they? The telephone, central heating, but they call it whiskey.
Yeah. No, they did not invent the television.
It was a whiskey joke.
No. Oh, sorry. But just let me know that a joke is coming so I can pay attention.
We'll fit this one in as well. The Sunday Times, Sean, and a town is plagued by a mystery hum. What about this woman who lives there who's got a smile on her face?
I don't know about this story. They're on the hunt for the Immingham hum that's kept residents awake for years. Britain's largest port. People are used to noise, but nothing like this. Matt Rudd listens to the Humber estuary. This is just an unidentifiable noise, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, but they could do...
It could be a guy that jumped over the Chelsea Bridge, really, and that the police are looking for.
With a bit of longshore drift. I'm not sure if it made it all the way up there.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it gets to
go bang in the night.
No, but it's some just humming around there, isn't it? No one knows.
But they could. You know what? They can find out where a bullet is shot in anywhere in the world. They could triangulate. All they need to do is send some. They haven't done the work up there. They haven't sent the guy this kind of like.
Yeah, but they've got better things to do, like rearranging their sock drawer. This isn't a story.
Do you know how annoying it is? The hum. My girlfriend's a snorer. You know, there's going to be a death. Somebody's going to die from this.
Yeah, you are. Your girlfriend's going to see this show.
Could be, yeah. She is watching this show.
I'm sure she has nice things to say about you. Well, that's the show, nearly over. Let's take another quick look at Sunday's front pages. The Mail on Sunday says, Palace calls in lawyers over bogus AI books on King's cancer. The Sun says, Star Billy in love split. Sunday Express, your messages have given me the greatest comfort. The Sunday Telegraph says Army eases security checks in drive for diversity. And The Observer, we've given up the fight, says Tories as poll defeat looms. And finally, the Daily Star Sunday, Abbey, I saw 3 UFOs on the A3. And those were your front pages. That's all we've got time for. Thank you to my guests, Louis Schaefer and Sean Mayo. We're back tomorrow from 11. Well, there'll be some other people sat here doing this. If you're watching at 5, stay tuned to Breakfast. And until the next one, have a good one.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, good evening. I'm Jonathan Vautry here with your GB News weather forecast provided by the Met Office. Have quite a foggy and murky night to come ahead of us leading into Sunday. Certainly could see some mist and fog patches forming relatively widely across areas of the UK. Quite a damp night as well, with showers pushing across the southwest. This band of longer rain moving into eastern England and eastern Scotland as well. Could be some localised disruption with this rainfall falling on already very saturated ground. Temperatures though underneath all that cloud generally holding up above freezing, but we can't rule out a patchy frost for some clearer spells across areas of Scotland. But it will be quite a damp start to Sunday again, with those showers pushing their way through. Could be quite heavy, maybe with some thunder along some coastal areas of the far south. Rain eventually clearing for eastern England, but it is going to be a very wet day for northeastern areas of Scotland. But some brighter spells developing as we head into the afternoon too, though, with some continuing showers moving in from the west. Temperatures generally around 7 to 11 degrees Celsius. On Monday, the area of low pressure that we have seen around this weekend will slowly drift its way northwards, a bit closer towards Iceland. That allows this northwesterly flow of air to start moving its way in. Quite a lot of isobars on the chart there, so it will be a relatively breezy day for most of us. Those showers will be most frequent in the north and west, particularly further parts of Northern Ireland, western Scotland, but areas further towards the east, starting off with a decent amount of sunshine, a bit of fair weather cloud bubbling up into the afternoon. Can't rule out the odd shower, but certainly drier here nonetheless. We hold on to a fairly changeable theme throughout next week, so further showers and longer spells of rain